Tonight on CFTK-TV News, Premier Eby teams up with Coastal First Nations, LNG Canada offers private relocation allowances, and analysis continues as Carney backs the budget.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello and thanks for joining us on this Thursday, November 6th, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. LNG Canada has recently sent letters to some residents who live nearby the gas liquefaction and export facility in Kitimat and offered them money. The alleged reason for the offers was so that the residents would briefly relocate from their homes located near the facility and also not make any kind of complaint or take legal action against the company, including if operations led to depreciation in property values or damage to properties. LNG Canada was asked to comment on these allegations, and while they did confirm that they contacted some residents to offer them relocation support during the facility's startup activity, they did not elaborate further on what exactly that support would look like. LNG Canada, a facility which is expected to export 14 million tons of liquefied natural gas a year, sent its first shipment this past June. The $40 billion facility has been in its startup phase for more than a year, and since September 2024 has posted 25 notifications of planned and unplanned flaring events. Where excess or waste gas is burned off, the flame can reach more than 100 meters high. LNG Canada also announced today that they are now producing LNG from their second of two LNG processing units, known as trains. That means that both Train 1 and Train 2 are now operational together. The BC Premier is standing behind the tanker moratorium despite a growing call from many Conservatives for the necessity of its removal for the sake of the economy. CTV's Rob Buffum reports.
Coastal First Nations joined BC Premier Eby to reaffirm their opposition to lifting the tanker ban on BC's north coast.
One crude oil spill would destroy billions of dollars in economic activity.
The show of force after Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's government has repeatedly called for an end to the moratorium on North Coast tankers so it can build a new oil pipeline to the coast.
One province or one premier cannot block the assets of 5 million Albertans in our most important industry.
On Wednesday, Coastal First Nations leaders signed a declaration reiterating a 50-year standing opposition to tankers, motivated by fears of a catastrophic spill and its potential impact on the ecosystem and economy related to tourism and fisheries.
We know fully the effects of what an oil spill can do to the ocean, to our breadbasket, to our way of life.
Eby reiterated frustrations. There's no proponent for a pipeline, and talk of one could compromise existing agreements with Coastal First Nations to support BC's energy projects, including LNG and mines.
It's really difficult for me to shadow box with a non-existent project that has non-existent benefits because it will never be built and it's not going to happen. I have to deal with the real. And in British Columbia, we're dealing with the real growth of our economy.
In a statement, Premier Smith responded, "A single parochial premier cannot block the export of the most valuable asset of 5 million Albertans. The decision to build this pipeline lies solely with Prime Minister Carney and the federal government, and we expect him to act decisively and in support of this project." A perspective shared by BC Conservative leader John Rustad.
And I think British Columbia can play a pivotal role in seeing that prosperity for all of Canada, as well as unity for Canada, by supporting the idea of moving our resources to the coast and getting them to foreign markets.
A coast increasingly coveted by different groups with competing interests.
A local nonprofit group dedicated to all things climbing is seeking to provide a space that can be used year-round. CFTK-TV's Kel Maslin has more on how that process is going.
The Skeena Climbing Society is currently in the midst of fundraising in order to get an affordable community bouldering wall that can be used year-round built. This wall would be on the smaller side and would not require ropes for people to use it. One of their board members also explained a little more about what the Skeena Climbing Society is for those who might not be familiar with them.
It's a group of volunteers that came together to use the drop-in or make drop-in nights at the Caledonia climbing wall. So at the Caledonia High School, there's a small top rope climbing wall, and then the board members who started it in 2017 facilitated drop-in nights for the public. So they set up the agreement with the Federation of Mountain Clubs of BC to house the insurance and then also the membership. And so they're just like facilitating that drop-in nights. And then they were also introducing climbers in the community and non-climbers to climbing in some outdoor events as well.
And as for the fundraising, the Society managed to accrue over $8,000 in donations on GoFundMe for this project, and their plan to get the rest of the money is through a BC Amateur Sport Fund, which makes it possible for the Society to accept larger donation sums and by going after certain grants. The plan is for the wall to be held within the Terrace Peak Gymnastics Club in Thornhill when its construction is completed. Shannon Lawrence also went on to mention that the creation of this wall has been in the works for some time now.
We've had, over the past 5 years, about 4 different parties privately approach us wanting to get some data so that they could open a gym, like a business, for a climbing gym. And we supported them, but then they fell through or they didn't end up doing their project. And we've been obviously running those Cal nights, and we see that they're over-attended every time we have them. We have, like, they're too full, and we've outgrown it, like, as soon as it was built, basically. So we, just see that need because we're the in-between with the community, and then we have seen that private interest. So we just, decided to start looking at real estate or rental, I guess, and then have been just talking to all the members of the community that have been helping, like the city and now Terrace Peaks Gymnastics and a few others, the district as well.
Although there wasn't an exact time frame given on when the wall might be ready once fundraising is finished, it's anticipated that it won't take very long to build. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin.
The BC provincial government announced that they are appointing a pair of judges to the provincial court. Deepa Majdub and Megan Olson were appointed in order to better support more timely and efficient access to justice. Majdub will serve on the Port Coquitlam judiciary after having practiced for over 2 decades, while also working with the United Nations. And Olson will join the Smithers judiciary after working as a managing lawyer at the Parents Legal Centre in Smithers. She has experience in both criminal defense law and Indigenous law. Coming up next, more analysis of the Canada Strong 2025 budget. A local conservation group is calling out the new federal budget for cutting funding to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Skeena Wild says that the federal budget includes over $550 million in cuts to Fisheries and Oceans Canada over 4 years. That's 5 times deeper than the $100 million in cuts over 3 years Stephen Harper proposed as part of his 2013 budget. Carney's cuts will have devastating consequences for salmon economies and communities across Canada, including right here in the Skeena, said Julia Hill, Executive Director of Skeena Wild Conservation Trust. She said it shows a stunning lack of regard for our region and the things people here value. Caitlin Yell, Skeena Wild's Fisheries Director, said the government claims the DFO will do more with less, but she says there's absolutely no evidence that's possible. Yell says if past cuts are any indication, we're likely to see the further degradation of Canada's fisheries resources at a time when we should be doing more to rebuild them. More budget analysis now as critics weigh in on Mark Carney's weighty proposals. CTV's Abigail Bimman reports.
At an Ottawa light rail yard the morning after the budget, the Prime Minister highlighted its $51 billion local infrastructure fund.
Canada's strength wasn't built in the halls of Parliament. It was built in our communities.
An attempt to make a high-level budget he calls generational relevant, as many economists say there aren't many takeaways for the average Canadian's daily life.
The government is moving in the right direction, but seem hesitant to go all in on this.
Economist Randall Bartlett points to previously announced tax cuts and a new promise to lower bank fees as impactful, but says it's tricky to find the narrative.
The amount of support that was provided to the economy is less than we were expecting. We looked at the depth of the cuts. It was less than we were expecting.
They're worried about how they're going to pay for their grocery bills. They're worried about how they're going to afford tuition. They're worried if they don't have a doctor. And this budget doesn't do anything for them.
Conservatives call it a costly budget.
Never before have Canadians had to spend so much to get so little.
The big bet that Mark Carney's making in this budget is on the patience of Canadians.
Scott Reid calls it a 30,000-foot budget with measures to reorient our economy and restructure business investment taking as long as a decade to see tangible impacts.
They may be absolutely necessary, but they are not urgent. And Canadians tend to think, worry, and vote on the basis of urgency.
Reid says the government needs to focus now on showing Canadians how this budget could help them on an ongoing basis, not just on Budget Day. The government tells CTV News today's train depot announcement was just the beginning of a cross-country tour to promote the budget.
There's no legal impediment to the killing of some 300 ostriches at a BC farm. The Supreme Court of Canada says it will not hear an appeal of an order from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to cull the birds following detection of an avian flu outbreak last December. The agency now says it will move forward with a complete depopulation of the ostriches. The owners of Universal Ostrich Farms spent more than 10 months opposing a cull, arguing in courts that the surviving birds showed no signs of illness. But the agency said that if they could still spread the disease, even if they appear healthy. Turning to the weather across the Northwest now. Tonight on the North Coast, expect conditions to be cloudy, a 60% chance of showers this evening, periods of rain beginning near midnight, a low of 6 degrees. Over the next few days on the North Coast, expect periods of rain to continue through to the weekend. Daily highs 7 to 11 degrees, overnight lows 4 to 6 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect periods of rain, winds from the north at 20 kilometers an hour, gusting to 40, becoming light late this evening, a low of plus 4 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect showers and periods of rain to continue. Daily highs 4 to 6 degrees, overnight lows steady at 2 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect rain, about 5 to 10 millimeters, and a low of plus 2. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect more rain and a chance of some snow Saturday. Daily highs 3 to 10 degrees, overnight lows between -2 and freezing. Checking your highways around the Northwest according to Drive BC. On Highway 16, there's bridge maintenance, road maintenance, and utility work underway, as well as water pooling, electrical maintenance, and slippery sections to watch out for. On Highway 37, watch for water pooling and slippery sections. On Highway 37A, there's a section with falling rocks as well as bridge maintenance underway. On Highway 118, watch for slippery sections, and on the Niska Highway, there's mowing and water pooling. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, a Conservative MP goes Liberal. Provincial officials are heading on a trade mission to Japan and South Korea this week with the goal of diversifying and expanding BC's forestry sector. The 7-day trade mission begins Saturday and includes Minister of Forests Ravi Parmar and First Nations and industry representatives. Members of the Alberta government, including Forest Minister Todd Loewen, will also be part of the trade mission. Parmar said in a statement that his message is that BC will not be defined by American protectionism. A dramatic crossing of the floor from a conservative turncoat was met with a warm Liberal welcome. CTV's Mike Lecoutel reports.
A clearly content Chris d'Entremont welcomed by a lively Liberal caucus. The Nova Scotia MP says his decision to cross over came down to serving his constituents and issues with Pierre Poilievre.
Over the last number of months, I wasn't feeling that I was aligned with the ideals of what the Leader of the Opposition had been talking about.
I'm honored.
The newest Liberal accompanied the Prime Minister to his post-budget press conference, where Mark Carney had this message for all parliamentarians.
Wherever they're sitting in the House, this is a time where we need to act as a country, be as unified as possible.
d'Entremont's former caucus colleagues questioned his move, given his record.
6 months ago, he ran on an affordability agenda. He ran to lower deficits. He ran on a stronger economy, a pro-growth agenda, and he's turned his back on that.
But the former Conservative says others in that caucus are also mulling over a move.
I would suggest that there probably are those that are in the same boat, but I will let them tell their stories if that time comes.
Attempting to quell recent rumors that she is crossing the floor, Conservative Dominique Vienne released a video reaffirming her commitment to the party. But if others do go, some pollsters predict problems for Pierre Poilievre.
It is a rare thing for a member of parliament to cross the floor, especially one in an environment as polarized as Canada is today. And I think that suggests it would be a signal that Mr. Poilievre has a real challenge in keeping the party together.
The Liberals wouldn't say if they're actively recruiting other MPs to join the government caucus, but when asked about it, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand said, the more the merrier. Mike Lecoutel, CTV News, Ottawa.
The Housing Ministry says a record number of shelter spaces will be available in the province this winter. It says the province is funding almost 6,500 shelter spaces in 58 communities, including permanent, temporary, and extreme weather beds. It says in a statement that more spaces are expected to open through the winter as BC Housing works with municipalities to finalize plans. The ministry says communities may be reimbursed for eligible costs set to establish and operate warming centers, such as facility rental and incremental utility costs. Turning to the stock markets now. The Canadian dollar rose just slightly. The price of gold was down $7.80. Oil dropped 11 cents. Natural gas was up 15 cents. Aluminum was down $14.50. In Toronto, the TSX dropped close to 235 points. The Venture Index was down by 25 points. In New York, the Nasdaq was down close to 446 points, and the Dow was down almost 399 points. Still ahead, Trump's tariffs challenged in court. Welcome back. Canada's largest province predicts a smaller deficit, but is also shrinking expectations for its labor market. The effects of U.S. tariffs loom large in Ontario's fall fiscal update. The province's deficit this year is projected to be $13.5 billion, and Ontario's debt is set to hit $500 billion by 2028. But Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy remains optimistic about the Ontario economy despite the ongoing U.S. trade war. President Donald Trump's government is under fire for its sweeping worldwide tariffs that are now being contested in the U.S. Supreme Court. CTV's Joy Malbin reports.
The handmaidens were back protesting President Donald Trump's tariffs outside the Supreme Court. The justices have to decide if the president had the authority to use a 1977 emergency statute to impose sweeping tariffs on more than 90 nations, including Canada.
President Trump has negotiated agreements worth trillions of dollars with major trading partners.
It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are.
Even conservative justices seemed skeptical. No other president has used the emergency law before to impose tariffs.
The exercise of the power is to impose
tariffs, right? And the statute doesn't use the word tariffs.
But it uses the word regulate importation.
The tariffs have been challenged by businesses and a group of states after lower courts agreed the president overstepped his authority.
For nearly 40 years, my family has built this business from the ground up. Today, reckless tariffs threaten everything we've achieved.
Trump's tariffs have cost Canada billions of dollars in lost business, straining relations with the U.S. And with trade talks stalled over an Ontario anti-tariff ad.
Such trade barriers hurt every American worker.
This is like somebody's driving the train. We're kind of in the back cars, and we don't control its speed, and we don't control its destination.
With the president's tariffs hanging in the balance, the administration is preparing backup plans should the court rule against him. A swift decision is expected within weeks or months. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
Travelers in the States can expect to see fewer flights to many major U.S. cities starting Friday morning. That's when the Federal Aviation Administration says it will reduce traffic across 40 airports to ease the load on the nation's air traffic controllers. The head of the FAA says the unprecedented move is necessary to keep air travel safe as traffic controllers show increasing signs of stress and fatigue while working unpaid during the longest government shutdown on record. The good news is that early November is not a peak travel time, so passengers stand a better chance of getting on other flights if theirs are canceled. That could become harder with American Thanksgiving travel just weeks away. Billionaire Elon Musk may soon have a new title, trillionaire, that would be a world first. But it's being left up to a shareholder vote that could go either way. ABC's Mola Lenki has more.
It's the decision that could pave the way for Elon Musk to become the world's first trillionaire.
It's not a money thing. It's a reasonable control thing over the future of the company.
Tesla shareholders will gather in Texas today and vote on whether to raise his ownership in the company from 13% to nearly 30%. Under the terms of the potential deal, his personal wealth could eventually top $2 trillion. But he'd need to meet some ambitious goals in the next decade, including growing Tesla's stock market value from roughly $1.5 trillion to $8.5 trillion, deploying at least 1 million autonomous taxis, and selling 1 million robots, like this one, called Optimus, which Tesla says can perform repetitive or boring tasks. Musk says having control of Tesla's future is more important than the money.
If we're building millions, potentially billions of humanoid robots, I can't be sitting there and one day get tossed out.
But the pay package meeting fierce resistance. Protesters gathering at the Texas Capitol saying one person should not be allowed to control that much money. The protesters echoing Pope Leo, who reacted to Musk's potential trillionaire status, saying, if that is the only thing that has value anymore, then we're in big trouble. Some investors say they'll vote for the pay package, but Tesla's sixth largest outside shareholder, Norway's sovereign wealth fund, says it will vote no.
That's our news for now. For more local stories, come find us on CFTK-TV.com. We're also on TikTok, YouTube, X, and Blue Sky. Make sure to subscribe to us there. And we'll be back tomorrow with more local news. Thanks for watching.